Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve Harney, the founder of Keeping Current Matters, and we're in KCM's brand new studios. What we do want to discuss today, ladies and gentlemen, is pricing, house pricing, and where it's going to go for the rest of this year and going into next year. But I want you to understand, if this is your first deep dive, which is what we call these Monday morning meetings, the people who come to this meeting are the greatest agents in the country. They're agents that are dedicated not to being good or average or above average. They're dedicated to being the best agents in the country. So they take time out of their schedule every single week, Monday mornings at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, to say, all right, let's take one subject and let me have such an intense understanding of that subject that it's easy for me not just to know about, not just to understand, but that when I'm sitting in front of a buyer or seller, I can explain it. That's what the deep dive is all about, getting the best agents in the country to come here so that when they're sitting in front of a buyer or seller, they exude that confidence that enables that buyer or seller to feel good about using them on the purchase or sale of a house. So I just wanted to get that because I know we have a bunch of brand new people onto the deep dive. I wanted to get that going. Now let's go right to the slides because that's the most important thing, not me. All right. So I've already gone over exactly what the deep dive is so that you have an understanding of that. And I've already told you that what we are talking about today, are we still seeing home price appreciation? There are some headlines out there, ladies and gentlemen, right now that are starting to question that. I want you to understand the importance of really being able to, again, not just know what's happening, not just understand what's happening, to be able to sit with a buyer or seller and explain what's happening. Current home price appreciation is crucially important to the psyche of the buyer or seller. I understand that mortgage rates and other situations are causing people to be on the fence, but there are some people, 38.7% of all the sellers in this country own their house free and clear. They're not on the fence because they're worried about mortgage rate. They could sell theirs and buy the next house, all cash. All right, there are plenty of buyers still out there that are ready, willing, and able to buy now. We sometimes concentrate on those that can no longer, my heart goes out to them, can no longer afford to buy because of the current situation with the rise in rates. But there's a whole bunch of buyers that can still buy, but they're a little nervous about whether this is the right time to buy. And we have proof of that in a survey that Fannie Mae does. And we've brought this up before for the people who've been here before. And what we can see is in January, the highest number ever recorded in the survey, 37% of Americans thought that prices were going to go down over the next 12 months. Now, the good news is we're working on that. All right. And we can see that going down the situation, we're chipping away at it, a little bit of a bumpy ride, but we're still one out of 4 people still believe that prices are going to come down over the next 12 months. And understand that if they believe that, why would they go ahead and sell the house and buy another one? Or why would they buy their first house if they think prices are going down? Now, the good news is in the September reading, we got that down below 1 out of 4, but barely. The historic numbers are in the teens, and that's what we need to bring it back to. So we still have some work because, again, there are some deals that are not being done right now because the buyer and or seller, all right, is not comfortable with the market right now, and we have to get them comfortable with that. And they have to realize that when they're purchasing a house, they should be looking at the long-term effects of that. All right, so what I wanted to give you is home price appreciation from 1963 until now over the last 60 years. And what we could see, there was a flattening out in the 90s, and then there was a little drop off during the great financial crisis around 2008. But for the most part, what we can see is that, you know, prices in the last 60 years have really gone in a direction that was very favorable to anyone who owned a home. Now, sometimes I get a question from some lay people saying, well, why would anybody buy a house right now? Interest rates are up, you know, prices are like all-time highs. And I showed them this graph, so I wanted to throw it in here. Now that is about a pricing, it's about renting. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason so many people still want to go ahead and purchase is because they know this is the alternative. When they purchase a house, they, for the most part, lock in their monthly housing expense for the next 30 years. Sure, insurance can go up and taxes can go up. And right now there's a little bit more challenges on that than there have been in the past. But basically, when they purchase the house, they keep that payment for 30 years with maybe a slight tick up. What we see here is a lot more than a slight tick up. So it might be less expensive to purchase a house today, to rent a house today than purchase a house. But if you purchase a house today, 5 years from now, it'll be much better to own that house than to rent. 10 years from now, it will be unbelievable. 20 years from now, the difference will be astronomical between what your locked-in payment was to what the rent rate rose to. And in 30 years from now, you don't have a mortgage payment, but you'll still have a rent payment. Now let's get back to pricing and let's explain what wound up taking place. Here are the three major home price indexes, and they all show the same thing. At the beginning of last year, January 2022, which is all the way to the left, home price appreciation was out of control. There was no question. We were appreciating much greater than normal. And what did that require? It required a correction, which we saw in the second half of last year, coming into this year. But what's happened since then? Over the last 6 months, what we're seeing is appreciation. House prices are again appreciating. And those are the three major indexes. If we go to the next three indexes, they all say the same thing. Prices were appreciating last year, the first 6 months of last year. The price appreciation was out of control. There was a correction, and now we're going back to more normal appreciation. And that's important. And that is going throughout the country. People always take the exception. There are exceptions. Boise, Idaho is a challenge. There's no question about that. There were a lot of people that moved from California to Boise during the pandemic years, want more property or want freedom or want fresh air. And now that they're in Boise, some of them are getting called back to work because they could work from home. They're getting called back from work, or they're beginning to realize, I like the beach. And they're coming back. So Boise is in a situation, their prices skyrocketed. And now they're still paying the price of those skyrocketing prices where they're adjusting still. Austin, Texas. Parts of the Gulf border of Louisiana. But for the vast majority of the country, prices have come back and come back rather strongly. So if we take a look at regions, and it says July there, ladies and gentlemen, understand that the repeat sales indexes actually talk about not median price or average price, because that can go up and down based on mortgage rates, which cohort of houses sells. This is repeat sales, meaning that same house is worth what today? And what we can see across the whole country, all right? And the reason I made that point is in July, it's delayed what they can show us. So the last numbers we have, we're showing that across every region in the country, prices went up. And if we look at the Case-Shiller, same situation. In all 20 of the cities or metro areas that they cover, they went up. And people will say, well, what about Los Angeles? They went up over 1% in 1 month. What about Phoenix? 1% in that month. Well, Seattle, I hear, is getting crushed. 1.7% in that 1 month alone. So yes, there were some cities that were getting crushed. All right. And what's taking place now is they're coming back, and they're coming back rather rapidly. Well, how could that be, Steve? It doesn't make any sense, because with mortgage rates going up, there's a lot less demand. But understand, ladies and gentlemen, price is not determined by demand. A lot of people have that confused. Price is determined by supply as compared to demand. So I like this quote from Freddie Mac. Overall, it appears the reduction in supply has outweighed the decrease in demand. Thus, house prices have started to increase even as sales have fallen. What did they just say? Supply and demand curve. Yes, demand is down, so is supply. So since we're only talking about prices on this particular deep dive, all right, we're not going to get into transaction counts. We'll do that on another deep dive. All right. But right now, I want to justify prices, because the number of transactions we're going to do for the rest of this year will be determined to some extent by the confidence of the consumer. And we have to make sure that the consumer is confident that we're not going into another housing crash. While continued mortgage rate increases challenge affordability across U.S. housing markets, home price growth is in line with typical seasonal averages, reflecting strong demand bolstered by a healthy labor market, strong wage growth, and supporting demographic trends. Still, with a slower buyer season ahead and the surging cost of homeownership, additional price gains may taper off. It's important that we realize what is being said there by Selma Happ, the chief economist of CoreLogic. Yeah, we're still going to see price appreciation, but it's going to taper off, and we'll show you a graph in a second in regard to that. Already baked in, price gains mean further acceleration may be on the horizon. If adjusted home prices were to freeze where they are now, it would result in an annual home price average rising above 5% by year's end, given the strong price increases seen earlier this year. On the other hand, if the 0.64 per month seasonality adjusted price increases we've seen on average in 2023 were to continue, we'd be looking at nearly an 8% year-over-year growth by December. Ladies and gentlemen, the 0.64 monthly appreciation is not going to continue. We're going to probably end this year somewhere in the vicinity between 3.5% and 5%. And the good news is that's a positive number. But when even people at ICE, which is the Black Knight Association, that group, they're saying that, you know what, price appreciation is surprising us. Fannie Mae just 2 days ago came out with their quarterly home prices, and we can see exactly what I was saying. The first 2 quarters of last year, the first half of last year, home price appreciation was out of control. In the third and fourth quarter of last year, there was a correction. Now, starting this year, what we're seeing is much more normal quarterly appreciation. And that's important. We're now in the fourth quarter, when home price appreciation typically slows. And with interest rates both higher and more volatile, it would be reasonable to expect some additional slowing in price appreciation. The key there is the last couple of words. It would be reasonable to expect some additional slowing in price appreciation. They didn't say anything about depreciation. So now let's go forward. Future home price appreciation for this year. High mortgage rates have slowed additional price surges, with monthly increases returning to regular seasonal averages. In other words, home prices are still growing, but are in line with historic seasonal expectations. What do they mean? Because everyone is talking about historical seasonal expectations. Let me spell that out to you. This is the 49-year average for monthly price movement, meaning how much prices go up each month over the last 49 years, the average over the last 49 years. And what we can see, ladies and gentlemen, very easily, is that prices go up quicker or more dramatically, I should say, in the early part of the year, and then they fade away in the later part of the year. Again, they go up when the buying cycle, buyer season comes into play, and for the last part of the year, they go down. Still appreciation, there's no red bars on that. All right, but the appreciation goes down. When some journalists are going to see this, either because they didn't understand it or they're trying to get clicks, their headline is going to read that prices are going down. You, as the expert, you as one of the great agents in the country, have to be able to not only know and understand, but explain to your consumers there is a major difference between appreciation decelerating, which is what we see here, and depreciation. So last year, again, things got a little bit crazy. What I did is I took this graph, made it a little bit smaller, and put in last year's numbers. And we can see last year, it was well above. This year, what are they saying to us? They're saying we're going to be much more in line with what is taking place in this graph. We're going to keep on tapering off. Now, I will tell you that the first September report of pricing, all right, and different groups reported at different times, all right, show is Zillow's prices, which shows that in September, prices dropped 0.1%. So when we look at this graph, you can see that it goes all the way down. So there is a good possibility in any year that if we had a rough month, that might drop below the line and turn into a red, which happened minimally in September for Zillow. We're going to wait for all the other reports to come in, and we're going to give you all of those in a future deep dive. But I don't think we're going to see red in all those reports. And throughout the rest of the year, I do believe there might be one or two little red bars there. Some red, some green, but they're going to be real close to zero. So what that's saying is exactly what this graph is saying. Appreciation is going to go down basically to nothing. Maybe it'll be a little higher than the zero line. Maybe it will be a little lower than the zero line. But there's no massive fall off in prices. As a matter of fact, if we look what people are projecting for the end of this year, it's pretty simple. We have the American Enterprise Institute, Zillow, Fannie Mae, the HPES, which is the Home Price Expectation Survey, we'll talk about in a second, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and NAR. This is what they're projecting. Their latest projections are for the end of the year. I will tell you that all the green bars had recent projections, meaning they upped their projections most recently because they're seeing what's taking place this year and now no longer worried about what they thought might be taking place this year. Now, the non-projection is the only red and is barely red. But I also want you to understand they do it quarterly. Their numbers, their guesstimate on that was last August. All right. The next one's coming out next month. I will bet money that the next one that now puts out is a green bar, because things are much better this year than people anticipated it being in regard to prices. So what are we going to look at this year? We're going to be looking at appreciation, if we average all six, at 3.3%. We have to get this information out, ladies and gentlemen. Prices did not fall this year. Prices are not going to fall this year. People who bought a house this past January are going to make money. We have to get that out. And ladies and gentlemen, for the members here that in many of the great agents are KCM members, they wear that badge very proudly. For the KCM members in here, we did an actual real talk showing that graph and talking about year-end home price forecasts from the experts. So do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen. One of the ways we have to get this message out is by video. We know how important video is. Now, I know some out there are saying, well, I'm not that good looking. I could lose a couple of pounds. I need a better tan. At the beginning of this, I was live, right? You saw my face. I'm not the best looking guy. I'm not the thinnest guy, and I don't have the best tan. But I know it's important for me to be on calls like this. I know it's important at the beginning of these calls to look you eyeball to eyeball. It's the same thing here, ladies and gentlemen. On your marketing, you need to do video. And for the KCM members, we make it real simple for you to do on any project we're doing in the deep dive. Please download that Real Talk and do the video and get it out there. Don't worry about what you look like. Worry about the number of people you're helping. Now, going back to what we're talking about, remember I said the home price expectation survey was one of those bars that said that price was going to go up 3.3% this year? I want you to know what that means. The home price expectation survey is a nationwide panel of over 100 economists, real estate experts, and investment and market strategists. They project over 5 years. The survey taken, where do you think price is going to be over the next 5 years? This is their projection over the next 5 years. Not massive appreciation like we've seen, during the unicorn years of 2021 and most of 2022. Not the crazy appreciation, going back to more normal historic appreciation. The most important thing about this graph, ladies and gentlemen, there are no red bars. That's the single most important thing. 100 of the top economists, real estate experts, and investment and market strategists. The average of what they all said was this. It's crucially important, ladies and gentlemen, we get this information out. Because again, there are some people sitting on the fence, not because they're not ready, willing, and able to move forward, because they're afraid to. And that's what great agents do. They remove the fear from the client. They let the client see what's really taking place so they can make an intelligent decision moving forward. They simply and effectively explain the reality of the market. And ladies and gentlemen, if there was ever a time we needed great agents, it's right now. All right, next week, we're going to handle multi-gen homes. It might be an answer to the affordability crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done a tremendous amount of research. Don't miss next month. There's listing opportunities in there. There's selling opportunities in there. And there's a real good understanding of what the next year, 10 years, and 20 years is going to look like. Well, right now, I want to take the last couple of minutes talking about my son. That's my son, Stephen. Stephen has an interesting story. He was pretty much born with a love of basketball. He had a basketball in his hands pretty much since he was walking. And he played competitive basketball. In high school, he was an all-state player his junior year and his senior year. He was the starting point guard on his varsity team as an 8th grader. We would go into gyms and people would fill the gyms just to watch my son play. That's how good he was. Now, he was cursed with his father's genes. He's not tall, he's not fast, and he can't jump very high. But he was dedicated to being great. He wanted to be the best basketball player he could be. So we lived in a suburb of New York City, and he realized when he was playing the New York City teams that they were better teams. And he wanted to play for the best teams, with the best players, against the best competition. So he tried out for a team called the Gauchos. If you're involved in youth basketball, you know the name. If you're not, ask someone who is. They're respected as one of the greatest youth basketball programs in the country. So when Stephen was 14, he tried out for their team. You know, they do 15 and under, 14 and under. He tried out for their 15 and under team. He went in the city looking. They were looking to fill 12 spots. Over 200 kids showed up. And they sent him to the drills. Almost every kid in that gym was more athletic than my son. Almost every kid in that gym was faster than my son. But there were very few kids in that gym as dedicated as my son. I never thought in my life that he would make that final 12 cut. They were having him jump over chairs, and he was hitting the top of the chair and knocking the chair over. A lot of the drills they were going through, he was struggling. But luckily, he had a coach that understood that being dedicated to something, being committed to something, giving it everything you had was crucially important. So somehow, some way, my son made that final 12 cut. And that team was a very, very special team. My son went on to play Division I basketball. He went on to play semi-pro basketball in Little League. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're talking about that Gaucho team when he was 14. That coach drove those kids hard. And they accepted everything he asked of them. And what came out of that, because I went to all the tournaments myself, when that team walked into a gym, they knew they were going to win. They didn't walk in arrogantly, but they walked in with a quiet confidence, a humble confidence that they knew because of all the hard work that they did, the commitment they made to every one of those drills, the focus they gave to the game, they were just better than the competition. And ladies and gentlemen, in almost every gym we walked into, when they walked in the way they did, you could see the other team also knew the Gauchos were going to win. There was something special about them. They paid the price to be great. They paid the price very few do. And my son to this day still flaunts at times the national championship ring, that team won. The best team in the country. Those kids still know each other. They still, converse back and forth with each other. There was a bond there, a bond of greatness, a bond of sacrifice, a bond of effort, a bond of focus. Today, my son doesn't play basketball anymore. But if you look real close on his chest, that's the logo for Harvard. He's an assistant coach on the Harvard basketball team, the women's basketball team. Basketball is still part of his life. But now he's teaching what he learned. The importance of hard work, the importance of focus, the importance of dedication, the importance of being committed to be the best you can be, because if you be the best you could be, you'll be one of the greats. All I'm saying on this call, ladies and gentlemen, is think about that. This is what I think about the people who come to Deep Dive. They're one of those kids. They want to attain greatness. They're willing to make the sacrifices necessary. They're focused. And that's why we call this the Deep Dive every Monday. We're going to dive deep. Almost no agent in your marketplace will understand any one of the subjects that we cover as well as you do. When you walk into a room, not only are you going to know at a realtor event, not only are you going to know that you're the best informed and the best agent walking into that room, the rest of the room is going to know that. That's what greatness is about. I'm very, very proud of my son. I'm very, very proud of all the people that come to the Deep Dives every Monday. I wish him luck. His first game's November 6th, which happens to be his birthday. So what are we really saying, ladies and gentlemen? What I've said throughout this, most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. Great agents can explain what's happening. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have a tremendous opportunity from now to the end of the year. We're approaching the holiday season. You're going to have parties and family gatherings. You're going to see people at your house of worship that you haven't seen all year long because they only come out once a year. You're going to see family members at Thanksgiving dinner. You can see friends and relatives at gatherings for the religious holidays in December. You're going to have holiday parties that you're going to meet all new people. You know what's going to be the number one subject on all of their minds? What in God's name is happening in the real estate market? I don't want you at those meetings and those gatherings to know what's happening. I don't even want you to only understand what's happening. Those people have a lot of questions. I want you to be great during those gatherings, those parties, those dinners. I want you to be able to explain what's happening. That's the difference between a good agent and a great agent. And in the market we're going into for the next 2 years, the great agents are going to mop up. That's what's going to be required. Greatness is going to be required over the next 2 years in our industry. And just a little tidbit, we gave you some great slides, and every single week we give you some great slides. Do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen. For these holiday gatherings, for these parties, for these dinners, you know Uncle Charlie is going to give you a really hard time. No, the real estate market's crashing. Did you see this? Did you see that? Did you see this article? Take some of the slides, the most powerful slides that you see that we offer, put them on your phones. I know you know how to do that because you have pictures of your dog, your cat, what you had for dinner last night, where you went on vacation. You know how to put pictures on your phones. I don't have to teach you how to do that. Take a picture of some of these slides and get them on your phones. You want to talk about showing your greatness? Let me not just tell you what's happening in the market. Since you asked me the question, let me show you. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Get at least 10 pictures on your phones. Be ready. Again, I said something just a second ago, and I'll say it again. Over the next couple of years, the agents who are going to really dominate this market are great agents. Dedicated, focused, willing to go the extra mile. Just look at my son's basketball team. And metaphorically, as we're going through this, you'll be wearing a ring. You'll be one of the most successful people in your marketplace that other people recognize as being the most successful person in your marketplace. Well, as I end every single one of the deep dives with, you gave me a half hour of your life. I hope, I pray, I gave you a good return on that investment. Thank you. See you next Monday morning.